Russians. So everybody's focused on the Russians and how they hacked the Democratic National Convention. The reason I put hack in there is I know some real hackers, and they don't consider that a hack, right? Getting John Podesta to click on a big green button that says, click here to change your password, and then getting a hold of his email didn't require a lot of hacking skills, right? But one of the problems that we have is we've looked at this Russia thing as a cyber problem, okay? The Russians are a lot of times we put in terms of skills, we look at Russia, the United States, and Israel kind of up here in the upper right-hand corner in terms of skills. And prior to a couple of years ago, the Russians were more inclined to operate like the United States does. Get in very stealthy, stay in there a long time, go undetected, get the information they want, slowly, if necessary, build this over a long period of time. But what have we seen in the last 2 years? We've seen the Russians much more willing, of course they don't admit it in public, but they're much more willing to get caught. They're much more willing to clearly and brazenly use activities in cyberspace to further their national strategic goals. And so if you look at this whole business with the so-called hacking of the Democratic National Convention, with the trolling that they have done, the most recent one was a study by Oxford that showed over 2 years how the Russians have, troll armies have targeted active duty and retired military to plant fake news stories because they know when the military people spread these that there's a certain level of respect for that in American culture, and they become a great target to spread this type of information. When they release the stuff from the CIA through the shadow brokers, all of those types of things, I would call none of that is really cyber war. What that is information warfare, and the Russians have been doing that since well before there was an internet. And if you ask me, the Russians' primary goal, if you go back to the election, did they have a preference over Clinton versus Trump? Maybe yes, maybe no. But what they really have a preference for is creating internal discontent, is flaming the fires of partisanship that already exists in our country. And so the more they can do with that, and getting us to think about, what's the CIA or the NSA doing in terms of privacy and doing these sorts of things, the more that they can create issues with the trolls and the fake news and all of that that heightens the internal friction that already exists in our country, I would argue is an advantage to them. The more that we're focused internally, the less that we're focused on what they're doing and we can actively deal with them. So that Russian set of Russian objectives is a little bit different than China. I think it's just as serious but in a different way, and it affects us both from a business perspective and it affects us personally, and it's something that, again, we have to pay attention to.